You're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is Jeremy Carl and Matt Gannon. Guys, welcome back to the show once again. If you can't tell, I've lost my voice because I'm still cheering and super excitement from the Ryan McDonagh trade, which, by the way, if you missed that episode, be sure to head and like and subscribe and check it out on our YouTube channel. It was a great episode where we broke all that down. But first and foremost, guys, how you doing today?
Happy Monday, everybody. I'm excited to get this topic underway, something that we've kind of pushed back just a little bit. Won't spoil it for everyone just yet, but ready for the show. Who's this stranger that we have next to me?
Yeah, Jake, you may have lost your voice, but I lost my hair. I feel like a new man. I'm about 10 pounds lighter and 10 degrees cooler.
Makes a big difference. There's a reason why Pedro shaved his head.
Well, Matt, you're looking good. We're glad to have you on. We're going to have an action-packed episode for you guys today. We're going to be continuing our player grades. If you missed the first two episodes, highly recommend you go check those out. They're over on our YouTube channel. As always, you can follow us on social media at RBLR Lightning or at RBLR Sports so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one. But today, it's going to be Steven Stamkos, Anthony Duclair, and Calvin Haan, who are three players we're going to be talking about their seasons, how they did with the Lightning this year, and give them an overall player grade. We'll look into their contract situations too. Of course, Stamkos, the fun one that everybody's talking about still, even after the Ryan McDonagh trade. So we'll see how things play out with him. But with that said, let's get right into it. And we should mention this too, just a quick little fun note for you guys. I don't even know this. I just found out just recently. But the Lightning's 2023 7th round pick, Ethan Hay, and their team won the 2024 Memorial Cup. So congratulations to Ethan Hay on that. He finished with 2 goals and 2 assists in 5 games, all coming in the semifinals against Moose Jaw. So congratulations to Ethan Hay. Hey, another 7th round pick showing out for the Tampa Bay Lightning. We've seen that before, and who knows, maybe Hay can come out and do some damage for the Lightning in the next couple of years.
That'd be cool, man. I like what you did there. Hey. You with
that wasn't even intentional.
I figured not, but I still loved it, Jake.
Yeah, well, sometimes they just naturally work themselves in there. All right, let's get into the player grades. We're starting it off with Steven Stamkos. By the way, guys, we are live today. Thank you so much for all joining us and hanging out with us. So if you guys have some comments on these players and their grades, what you think their grades should be, let us know down in the comments. We'll pop them up on screen here, and we'll talk about that. So feel free to chime in as well when we start these conversations. But kicking it off with Steven Stamkos. Obviously, he's been the talk of the season. It all kicked off when we all that stupid contract drama with the way things went down at the beginning of the season. And then he had his interesting start to the season where he was scoring a ton on the power play, but a lot of people were saying that he did not have a great first half. Then he really turned it on in the second half. He had an unbelievable postseason. If you're wondering about his final lines, Stamkos finishing with 40 goals, 41 assists, and 81 points. The plus-minus wasn't too friendly to him. He was a minus 21, which I'm just seeing, holy cow, that is really low. But
that's a career low.
A career low. Well, hey, he scored a lot of points though, so I guess that makes up for it just a little bit. But Steven Stamkos, always the talk of the town. Listen, he's the captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning for a reason. He's been the backbone of this team for how long now? I can't even remember at this point. And to me, he's almost in that spot where he can do no wrong. Maybe I'm just a biased Lightning fan, but I still thought he had a great season.
No, I mean, it's really hard for him to do any wrong. Again, he's been the face of the franchise for, over a decade now, going on 15 years now. Like he's the golden boy, no matter, he might not end up the best player in franchise history if Kucherov keeps playing the way he is, but he will forever be, the face of the team. So, yeah, like you were saying, Jake, a bit of an interesting year from Stamkos, from to pretty good to, unarguably the best player in the playoffs on either team for me, really. Yeah, definitely an interesting year, and it makes the whole contract extension, which was already a bit of a hot button issue, that much hotter. No, just again, what an incredible leader, but this season was definitely very up and down for him as well. So I'm really interested to see, what kind of grades we all have in store for him. I feel like we might have a plethora of different answers. I've got mine locked and loaded, but mine is always definitely prone to change.
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of said it too. There's an interesting season for him because he was putting up points and at an incredible clip. Honestly, I mean, he hasn't had so 2 years ago in 21-22 he had a 40 goal season, but the last one before that was that magical 18-19 year. He's still producing offensively, but unfortunately it seemed like his 5-on-5 game really took a major hit this year, and you can say that it's for a variety of reasons that aren't just because of Steven Stamkos. Negative 21 career low, and that's going back to his rookie year 08-09. He was negative 13, and there were some pretty bad teams that he was playing for back when he first started. But being negative 21, and the team that this whole team really struggled for 5-on-5 goals, you can say that part of it was that they don't really like him playing center. He takes draws, but he kind of plays more of a winger role. And with that, usually you have Sorelli. For part of this year, Nick Paul was centering his line, and they never really produced very well with 5-on-5. Stamkos had almost 50% of his points be on the power play. Of the 40 goals, 19 were power play goals. Of the 81 points, 39 of them were power play points. So, we've tossed around that power play merchant term quite a bit doing our reviews because it's something that people criticize the team for. But when half your points are coming from only power play, I mean, it shows where he was by far the most effective, most consistently. And I think that, was a big part of the problem with some of his game, from being streaky, which has kind of always been a career thing for Stamkos, to just not being as strong defensively 5-on-5. I will say, though, he was dominating that face-off circle for good stretches of the time. That he was doing really well. Actually, I got the stats pulled up here. It was like his second best season in his career for playoff or for face-off percentages. 2021 being at 57.2, this year being 56, and at some point he was way up there in the 60s for like an entire month. Let's see, yeah, he was doing really well on the draw, which definitely helps, but at the same rate, some of those 5-on-5 goals that went him on, he was on the ice, going to have me docking some points from him.
So, Joe, let me ask you this, because you're kind of the X's and O's guy on this podcast. Is with Stamkos playing wing instead of center, does that play any role into his defensive game? Like, I know the center is usually supposed to be the more defensive minded guy on the forward line, and I know he's been playing on the wing. Let's say the last 3 or 4 years, has really transitioned away from that center role, but it seems like it's been quite a steep drop off in that defensive game. Like, he was never really known for it, but does playing the wing, do you think that plays a bit of a factor into it?
Well, I think you put him on wing because you isolate him a little bit more defensively. When you think about the defensive zone, think about where you always see Kucherov in the defensive zone. You almost always see him on the boards on the right side. That's where he is. That's like his spot as a winger. Now, the way that the defensive structure is set up is you have like an F1, 2, and 3, but you always tend towards specific positions. So you're going to, if you're the first one back, you're going to assume what would be like the F1 role defensively. So if he's the first one back, he's going to be playing more of like that center, typical center position. And as the other team starts to cycle the puck around, you have different coverages. The way that the system overall worked this year is I kept calling it a pretty little house that they would put themselves into, the way they'd stack themselves. So they did have a little bit more defined spots that they wanted our guys to go to. And Stamkos is notably slower. I want to say that leg break that he had in Boston, or against Boston, I can't remember him having quite as much speed since those days. And because of that, you can be a little bit of a liability. Sorelli is an amazing shutdown center. And if you're going to have somebody that, Stamkos has never been a defensive god by any means, and Sorelli is almost as good as it gets. So if you're going to have him be on the same line, you have to put him on where he'll do the least harm, if that makes the most sense.
Okay.
But he's great at the draws. I mean, he dominates those draws. So, I mean, if by casually watching, you'd be like, oh, he's playing center, but really he pretty much only plays wing.
It's funny, the positions have changed so much. Like, you used to really have a left winger, center, and a right winger. I feel like today it's more of just forward. Stamkos is still officially listed as a center, by the way, if you're wondering, on like NHL websites. But you're right, he mostly plays left wing nowadays, so it's very different for him. And he's always moving around. We've seen him play center at times too, depending on what the Lightning are looking for and whether you got guys injured or stuff like that as well. When it comes to the defensive side of things, listen, there's no question, especially in the first half of the season, 5-on-5 wise, he was nowhere near as good as he has been, especially in the second half of the season. I try to give guys a little bit of leeway when it comes to the defense this year because of that defensive system and how bad the team defense was just overall. But minus 24 is really low. Like, it's hard to forgive all of that. Yeah, you guys know. Listen, when it comes to power play merchant, empty net merchant, whatever term you want to throw around out there, I hate that term because at the end of the day, as I always say, they don't ask how, they ask how many. And listen, Stamkos was putting them in the back of the net. I don't care if they were coming on the power play. And 81 points, another fantastic year for him. So offensively wise, that doesn't concern me. The defense is where I think you can talk about his game and the one issue this year. Offense, it doesn't matter to me. Power play, 5-on-5, 4-on-4, 3-on-3. Who cares? They're goals, and they all end up on the scoreboard just the same. So from the offensive standpoint, I thought Stamkos had another unbelievable year. Yeah, his defense wasn't as good. I wonder how much of that defensive system played a role into it. He did have a -5 last year as well, so it did take a dip. If you're looking at the plus-minus category last year, and it took an even bigger dip this year, so maybe not as much the defensive category. There's a lot of different factors that play into this kind of stuff, so it's hard to make an exact determination. Obviously, only Stamkos in the coaching staff probably knows exactly what caused that. But, it's overall, listen, I'll take it any day of the year when you have a guy that puts up 81 points. I think I can forgive a lot of more of those defensive mistakes.
And that's the crazy thing about Stamkos is, I mean, it's been debated for almost 5 years that is he kind of losing his offensive ability? Is he no longer really got what it takes to be in the league? And then he puts up another consistent year where he's, like I said, 81 points. I'm trying to think of the last time that he got lower than that, and the only time is due to injury where he didn't play enough games to even consider it. Even the 1920 season, he got 66, but he only played 57 games total. So I mean, he's just somebody that goes out there and puts up points when you kind of rule him out. 2 years ago, he had 106. And
2015, 2016 is really the last year he did not hit that 80-point mark and played close to a full season. That way, he had 64 points that year in 77 games played.
Yeah, so that's what, 8 seasons ago? That's ridiculous consistency out of a guy that constantly is being second guessed as to whether or not he still has what it takes to be a top 6 forward, and then he goes out and shows up.
He might be the player with the longest he's washed tag placed on him, and everybody's just kind of waiting for it to happen. And I'm fine with him, staving off Father Time. Again, he's not an old player. He's 34, 33, somewhere in that range. Like, that's not necessarily old, but again, Father Time is undefeated. But again, like we were saying, defense has never been a strong suit, and yeah, we can pick it apart and whatever. But when you're, still scoring at this rate, and you used the buzzword, Joe, consistency, and that's exactly what he is. He's a lock for 35, 40 goals a year, and 80 to 90, and occasionally 100 points. I doubt we're going to see 100 points again. But is there any doubt in any of your guys' mind that he couldn't score 40 again next year? No, I think we'd all.
Every year, it's a doubt in my mind. I'll be honest. Every single year, it's a doubt in my mind.
And every single year he continues to prove us wrong, which I'm okay with that. No problem
Yeah.
whatsoever. I think he can do it, sure. But yeah. I mean, I totally understand why you might have a little bit of doubt there. I mean, listen, the guy is 34. He is older, and he does have injury history, but when he's playing a full healthy season, there's no reason he can't. Obviously, the contract thing is the big talk right now. I fully expect Stamkos to get a contract signed. I think Hedman even said that at this point they're just waiting for it to happen. They know he's the backbone of this team, and he kind of is Tampa. As you mentioned, Matt, well, it's been like a decade now since he's been the face of the franchise. So it's how much that contract's going to be. Who knows? He did have a really good end to his season. Maybe that bumps things up a little bit. Of course, you had the Ryan McDonough trade, which changed a lot of things as well and made it a lot more complicated. Again, we talked about all of that stuff in the Ryan McDonough episode. If you missed, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. You can go back on our YouTube channel and check that one out as well. But let's go with the player grades. Who wants to start us off with Steven Stamkos and their player grade? Any takers, or you want me to go first?
I'll go first. I'm gonna give him. I can't give him lower because it doesn't feel right. But a B minus, and I think that's I think that he was a lot of our issues 5-on-5. So that's why it's I don't know, Jake, if you're thinking that it should have been that I'm doing him a disservice. He did above what I thought he was going to be able to do this year, but at the same rate, he didn't achieve what I think that he needs to do in order to get a higher ranking.
All right, interesting. By the way, Lisa agrees with you. She said that Stammer gets a B, so right in that range. You said B minus, she goes with a B. So, all right, Matt, what about you?
So, Joe, you said it perfectly, and it feels wrong to give him anything lower. It seems like he might deserve it, but I can't force myself to do it. So I'm agreeing with you. B minus. It just does not seem right. But Jake, you're a little flabbergasted. I wonder where he's at. But yeah, again, there were some major flaws in his game this year. But at the same time, when you're a point per game, putting up 40 goals, despite having that power play merchant tag, he was still very effective, especially later on in the season, especially in the face-off dot as well, which was a weakness last year that they seemed to address this year. However they did it, I don't know, but he was a part of it. So played well enough to get himself a B minus, but not good enough to boost that.
Yeah, just remember, Jake, minus 21.
Minus 20. It was low. Before I get to my grade, I want to ask you this, Matt, because I know playoffs have been a big thing for you. If playoffs did factor into the grade, how much does that change it for Stamkos, if at all?
That's such a hard question. Like, the first thing my mind went to was B plus, but because he was the only one that really seemed like he cared, like I'm thinking like A plus. Just because
playoffs would have been a factor then.
They would have been, and like I think they might still be playing a bit of a factor into my grade, but again, just being as unbiased as possible, yeah, B minus. But if we did have playoffs into account, S tier. He doesn't even get the ABC grades.
Well, you guys got me questioning my. Listen, I know I'm a huge Lightning fan. We all know that, and I'm wearing those blue colored glasses all the time, but. I wanted to give him even higher grade. I knocked my grade down a couple points because of that minus 21. But my grade, it's an A minus. And you know what? Sue me. Listen, at the end of the day, the guy put up 81 points and had 40 goals. I can't go lower than an A for him. Listen, I know the defense was bad, but the whole entire team's defense was bad. If we were doing it just by that, everybody would have B's and C's. A guy who puts up 40 goals and was that good for the Lightning on the power play, that good for them late in the season, has led this team even through all the contract drama. I just cannot bring myself to give him lower than a B. I honestly wanted to go at A, and I was like, I'll do A minus. His defense wasn't great this year, but that's what I'm sticking with. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me know down in the comments. I'm going with an A minus. Look, Matt was so shocked he lost his video feed there for a minute. So I'm going A minus. That's my grade for Steven Stamkos.
Well, looks like, who was it that chimed in? Was it Lisa that chimed in before?
Yes, she said she gave B.
Yeah. Pretty much averages out to exactly what she was saying. So good on you for calling it a B. That's pretty much right where we're at.
All right, well, there you go. Round average out a B. I'm a little biased, and I go with the A minus. So, all right, we'll move on to our next player. Obviously, the big news waiting for that is the contract situation for Steven Stamkos. Hopefully we will know more soon, but we have to wait and see on that. Next player we're going to do is Anthony Duclair. Now, Duclair's a fun one, I think, because we acquired him at the trade deadline, obviously a late guy that we went out and grabbed. He was playing with the San Jose Sharks, and the Sharks are the worst team in the NHL behind a couple other. I think they actually, I don't know if they did finish where they finished exactly, but one of the worst teams in the NHL.
They were last.
They were last. There you go. Worst team in the NHL. And then he comes over to the Lightning, who are one of the better teams in the NHL. His final point line for the entire season, 73 games played, 24 goals, 18 assists in 42 points, and was a -8. If you're wondering what his stats were on just the Lightning, 17 games played, 8 goals, 7 assists for 15 points, and was a +4. He was a -12, by the way, on the San Jose Sharks. So for my money, guys, Anthony Duclair was one of the best trade acquisitions for the Lightning, no question, this year, because it was Duclair and Dumba were the two guys they picked up. But even you go back a couple of years, I would say Duclair was one of the top guys. I thought he was fantastic offensively. He was even pretty solid defensively, but he gave the Lightning a much-needed boost when it came to that. And he really ended up playing a top 6 role, but even for that depth scoring kind of, they needed scoring at the time, and they got it from Anthony Duclair.
Yeah, he was one of the best.
He came in shot out of. I got this.
I'm sorry.
He came in shot out of a cannon. Go ahead, Matt. Thank you.
No, he was one of the best trade deadlines, arguably since Brandon Hagel and Nick Paul. And even still, I'd maybe put him just a tier higher with how he did play on this team. He was he was just great all around. He was near a point per game on the team, and it seemed like he was just putting an effort every single shift. Definitely an interesting kind of player. Like, again, just everywhere on the ice, but he was exactly what the Lightning needed. And, it sucks we couldn't get deeper into the playoffs with him or anything like that, but it was a huge burst of energy. Whereas, let's say, with Nick Paul and Brandon Hagel, great players that, that are still on the team, and we love them dearly, but I don't think they were as much of a shot in the arm as Duclair definitely was. And I don't even think he was expected to be as big of an energy boost like that. So it did work out so perfectly. He did have a bit of a rough playoffs, but I guess we're not really grading playoffs with these grades. So there really wasn't a whole lot more that we could ask for, out of Anthony Duclair.
Yeah, I mean, what was the streak where he had a goal or a point streak for like 5 or 6 games as soon as he got traded and came over? He really did provide a ton of energy. I know that they're saying the dynamic in the locker room changed quite a bit when those two came over as well. The hype guys up, and you could see the team start to turn around from that influence that they had. Being able to add somebody with the speed that Duclair has, we got kind of a small sample size, and he wasn't able to play long enough with the team to really have the defensive worries that like the Lightning did. And he played almost like half the games on the top line there because he had that speed and he was finishing, so he was getting rewarded for it. So I'd say he started off lightning hot. I mean, I got the the split stats thanks to Eureka here. That in March he was a +8, 12 games played. He had 8 goals, 6 assists. That's a really good start to a fresh team. And he cooled off a little bit from that point, but he's still almost a point per game. Things just started getting extremely tight for the Lightning down those last few games in April. I think he played really, really well. And the thing that's a little bit worrisome is that I don't know that we're going to have the room to sign him. Unless he were to take a really, really friendly contract. That's a guy that I wanted since before he got signed by the Panthers. But now it looks like that might just be a kind of a one and done with him, unfortunately, because I was really high on him.
Yeah, I'm doubtful that he comes back because he only signed the 1-year deal in San Jose. This is his not really a prove it year, but the 1-year deal was so he could get top line minutes on kind of a so-so team and maybe get a chance at a cup. And he performed. He performed great. He was pretty decent on San Jose, but he comes over to Tampa and really, he might have earned himself an extra $1.5 million, $2 million on his next deal, which will probably be for some term, he might have priced himself out of Tampa again, especially with the Ryan McDonough trade happening as well. There's not a whole lot of cash to go around, and let's be honest, who's more important, Anthony Duclair or Steven Stamkos? You can't really have both, or at the very least, it'd be really, really hard to do both. Because again, I think he played so well that he earned himself a really nice contract, which inherently isn't a bad thing. It just kind of sucks that we can't keep him. So I think this next deal for him, teams are going to be, there already are reports that there are a couple of teams interested. I think Seattle was one of them, and they've got money to spend, money to burn. So he's probably going to cash in on a pretty moderately long deal at a pretty decent cap hit, a pretty fair cap hit for him. So I can't really see him coming back.
Do you guys remember the days when the Lightning didn't have a cap nightmare? Because I sure miss those. That's for sure. It's so.
I wasn't even around for those. This is all I've ever known.
So long ago it feels. It's Duclair was fantastic. He came out. He came out hot. He was scoring goals. He was a much needed boost for this team. Arguably helped them get back into I think they were always in the playoff race. They're always in that playoff spot, but they kind of really pushed themselves, above into where it wasn't, oh, are they going to make the playoffs? It was, oh, they're making the playoffs. Where are they finishing now? As soon as Duclair came over. And that was a huge help for the Lightning. I mean, there's not much more you can ask for a guy that comes over like that. And if you missed Lisa's comment, by the way, she said that he was great for the Panthers. He was, and then he was great here in Tampa. Maybe he just likes it in Florida. Maybe that's why I like to think about it. But when it comes to the contract situation, yeah, it's really hard to see. You would expect he's 28 years old, so he's still got plenty of years left in him. You would think he signs a bigger deal somewhere else, although that's what was his contract in San Jose? Do you remember?
It was 3x3 from Florida.
Right. And then he got moved to San Jose. So, that's kind of your bridge type of deal. So you would expect him to get that bigger deal, especially the way he performed. And for the Lightning, it's just going to be so hard to try and bring him back. Obviously you want to bring him back because he performed so well. And I know JBB does not like to do rentals. He's not the type of guy to do that. In fact, I can't even remember over the last couple of years. I mean, Savard was kind of the probably biggest rental that I can think of off the top of my head. But more often than not, the Lightning usually don't like to do that. So, but it's just with the McDonough trade, it made everything so much more complicated. And you expect Stamkos to take up majority of the cap space that they have left. And where does the other money come from? Unless Duclair just says, I want to win a cup, and I think we can do it here in Tampa, and I love being down in Florida, maybe you can make it work. But that's for JBB to try.
That'd be incredible.
Hey, you never know, right? A kid can dream, but when it comes to Duclair's play, specifically on the ice this season, it was fantastic. No question about it. So let's go to the player grades. I'll start us off this time. I'll start us on a high note, and then you guys can bring us down, because I'm sure you're going to just nail it or something. I'm kidding. Listen, for me, it was a little tough with Duclair's grade because you mentioned it, Joe. It was a small sample size, 17 games played. A lot of things can change over the course of a full season. But in those 17 games played, he was fantastic. And there really isn't much of anything to knock him for. The Lightning got exactly what they wanted and more. When you look at the situation and the trade that they made for Duclair. So it's a no-brainer A+ for me, for Anthony Duclair. He was that good. I really don't have anything to knock him for. Maybe the only thing I can knock him for is that he played a little too good and he's priced himself out of Tampa. But other than that, he did what he was supposed to do, scored lots of goals, was great, defensively too on the plus-minus category. So A+.
I'll balance him out just a little bit, go A-. I thought he played. That's still an outstanding grade. I thought he played really, really well for the Bolts. He started to cool off a little bit, but he's still almost point per game once he came over. We're not taking playoffs into account, because that might change things as well. But like you said, on the defensive side of the puck, you have 15 points, and then you're a +4. There still could be a little bit more to be desired on that side, but it's for what we got out of him and for what we gave up for him, I thought he did great. So yeah, that's a solid A-, which is it's a high score. It's a good score.
Well, I'll meet both you fellas in the middle. I'm going with a straight A. Not good enough for an A plus, not bad enough for an A minus. Again, just flat out A. I thought he was, again, exactly what the Lightning needed. He was a huge jolt of energy for the team. Couldn't have, picked a better guy to trade for, just a more fitting guy to trade for. So yeah, I guess you could, desire a little bit more from the defense, but he wasn't here long enough to really get acclimated. You can kind of give him the benefit of the doubt with that whole thing. I didn't really notice him anywhere, getting caught out or super out of position or just getting completely blown by or anything like that. So I can't really dock him for that. So again, just just fit perfectly with the team. It was exactly what we needed. Just a flat out A.
I want to say too, for him, like how cool must that have been to go from San Jose, a miserable franchise, to playing for Tampa, and then like Dumba's like his best friend that he's never played with, and he's got him on the team too, and now he's probably going to get a heck of a contract out of that whole scenario. So I mean, he probably owes JBB a few steaks, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. Listen, we saw him. I have those pictures. How happy he was just being here. I think they even talked about the moms of Duclair and Dumba were getting together during the games. They loved it too. Matt, Lisa agrees with you. By the way, she said straight A, right on the money. So hey, listen. We got all 3 A's for Anthony Duclair, A plus, A minus, and an A. He got a perfect sweep when it comes to the A's. So yeah, great season for Duclair, no question about it. I say he looked pretty good in Bolts Blue. He actually looked really good in those black alternate jerseys, by the way, the Lightning unveiled this year. I thought they looked really good on him. So, those jerseys look good, just period. But yeah, Duclair, I say he looked pretty good in Bolts Blue.
And you know what else looks good? Oh, I'm sorry.
Joe, you got right there. That's exactly where I was going. If you want to look just as good as Anthony Duclair, you get it over to shop.rblrsports.com and check out our awesome team-inspired merch from the Lightning, the Bucks, the Rays, the Rowdies, you name it. We got it. Head over to shop.rblrsports.com. And for our amazing viewers who are listening right now, you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off of your order. I recommend you go check it out. They got some awesome stuff over there at shop.rblrsports.com. Links, as always, are in the descriptions of these videos, so go check it out. By the way, we got 45 people hanging out with us live. Really appreciate everybody jumping in. If you want to be updated on when we do go live, be sure to follow us at RBR Lightning or at RBLR Sports so you get updates on that. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos just like this one as well. All right, we got one more player to get to here before we get ready to wrap things up. And this one is going to be interesting, and it's Calvin de Haan, who we're going to talk about now. De Haan, who came in, I think there were some higher hopes for him. He's kind of a lower, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is here. He was a under the radar signing maybe, and it was like, hey, he did pretty good with Carolina. Why not us? And we kind of needed some defensive help, but he didn't end up playing a ton, or he kind of was in and out of the lineup a little bit. He did okay overall when you look at just specifically the stat line. 59 games played, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points, and was a -9. But I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on Calvin de Haan and his season, especially with what I think the original expectations for him were.
Before we interrupt each other, do you want to go first, Joe?
Oh, you're so sweet. I mean, Calvin de Haan came in pretty much as almost like a direct replacement to Ian Cole. Somebody that you wanted on the back end that wasn't going to be great, but was going to at least be consistent. We've had Myers on the back end. I'm going to end up blanking on a bunch of names, but other players that we've had in previous seasons that they probably had more upside than de Haan, but were very, I guess, streaky is probably the best way to put it. Like Cal Foote, he'd have a great game, and then he'd have a really terrible game. With de Haan, you always got a guy that you knew he was just like an average defenseman, but he was very consistent in the way that he did it. He's not going to get a ton of shots on goal. He's also not going to screw up and allow a breakaway the other way. Maybe he'll get beat by somebody, but he was responsible, and we kind of got out of him, I think, pretty much what we expected. the Lightning did bring in some younger guys to try rotating in. Like I think Lilleberg got a lot of his minutes the later half of the season, and it's not a bad thing when you get someone that's young and can play consistently as well. So I mean, the Haan served his role. You knew he wasn't really going to be a top 6 guy with, or I'm sorry, a top 4 guy with who he had. So it's hard to knock him too many points down. He got kind of like somewhat of the easier assignments on for the bottom 2 lines that while he was on the ice, but also those bottom 2 lines on our team were pretty bad with their plus minuses. So even though he was a -9 overall in the season, everyone was doing really poorly for that. And I know I'm saying that almost as a double standard compared to Stamkos, but it's a different way of applying force, if you will. You need your top 6 to always be positive. So I mean, I thought he had I'll say a consistent year. You knew what you were getting at him, and that's what he delivered.
He was perfectly average. Not that I wasn't unimpressed with him, but I was just never like, great play, Calvin. Like he was just always a guy. Like I'm having a really hard time, trying to say this, but just nothing special, which is, I guess, what you want out of that 7th, arguably 8th D-man. He was never, my first go-to option for killing a penalty or even just being, a regular in the lineup, but he was serviceable when needed, especially with the rotating cast of defensemen we did have this year. He stepped up when necessary, but there were a couple of drawbacks to his game. His speed definitely was not a big help, but he wasn't really getting beat. He was strong in front of the net. He was definitely light on his feet and not in a good way. Like it seemed like he got knocked down a lot. He definitely got in front of his fair share of pucks. He would block a good bit. Not that it was like an insane attribute of his, but he'd eat some rubber. But he did get knocked down a lot. It seemed like players behind the net or something not take advantage of him, but maybe he thought he was sturdier than he was. That was just one, little thing that I noticed throughout the year. And it wasn't a crazy bad hindrance, but it is a bit of a dock. It led to a couple of turnovers. But again, just a perfectly average season from him. Yes, would I want more? Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't? But no real detractors against him or his grade. But yeah, would definitely like to see a little bit more out of him. I don't think he's coming back next year. I think Fleury was probably a better, option as a 7th D-man this year. Or Lilleberg, if you want to count him as one. So I don't know, a bit of a tough grade for me, kind of in that Austin Watson territory.
It'd be kind of like if I jumped on the team for a game and I didn't get lit up, knocked down, and I made a pass. That'd be an A+ performance for my skill level. So it is tough to grade somebody when they're not one of the top tier performers.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see what you guys' grades are going to be for him. Maybe I had a little bit higher expectations for him because I think he was pretty decent on Carolina when he played with them there. But average is probably a good way to describe it. He really didn't notice him that much, which usually for a defenseman is a good thing. But in this case, maybe a little bit less of a good thing just because he wasn't always making great defensive plays either. I think he just kind of got outshined by some of the rookie like Crozier and Lilleberg, who both came up and played fantastic. When those guys come up and show what they can do as a super young rookie, well, not really. Crozier's young in the rookie sense of times he's played in the NHL, but
quickly, Carolina, he only played 53 games and he averaged 13 minutes. So he wasn't going to be in the top 4.
Well, there you go. Didn't play nearly as much, but at the end of the day, when those like your rookies like Lilleberg and Crozier come up and kind of outshine him and got put in the lineup, yeah, Matt, I'm with you. I doubt he comes back next year. I think they're going to more focus on those rookies. So let's go with our player grades. Matt, what are you giving him?
So I was thinking C-, but I'm going to bring it up to a C, and it's for one reason that I just thought of. I believe he got the tying goal in that crazy New Year's Eve game against Montreal with the non-whistle heard around the world.
That's right. I think you're right.
it was either the tying goal or the goal that got us within one or something like that. It was a big goal. I remember that. So just for that and that alone, we're bringing it C- to a C. Again, just as average as you could get. Want a little bit more, but didn't leave you high and dry.
I'll go for the next one, and yeah, that's kind of funny. As at that game, what a weird game that was. What a weird game. But I'll say that he did just about everything I kind of expected him to. So I'm gonna go with the C plus. He didn't wow. He didn't play beyond what I thought he was gonna do. He was consistent.
We're really struggling for words here.
Okay,
Kucherov ate them all up earlier in the season. We got nothing left in the tank.
Matt, you threw my grade plans into an absolute blender because
That's my job.
You're right. He did score that goal for the Lightning, and if I'm not mistaken, that goal was the reason that I was in a video of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I was down on the glass for that video, and after he scores that goal, you can see me and my brother celebrating for that goal. So for that, I gotta give him an A plus, right? I mean, he got me on the video, so I love him for that. No, listen. Originally, I was thinking C minus actually. So I was one of the lower grades when it comes to Haan. Listen, I think C is the perfect grade for him. It's just overall because, as we said, it was just kind of average for him, and it wasn't bad, it wasn't great, and that's what kind of a C is. So I think the C grade is very fair. But I will forever be grateful for him scoring that great goal and getting me in the video as well. So I got to give him some props for that. That Canadiens game, man, that is a game that will go down in the history books as one of the craziest games. We might have to do a full episode just on that game because it was just
it lives rent free in my head. That game still kind of keeps me up at night.
At least we won it. If they had lost it, things would have gotten a lot worse.
That was this past season. That game was the game from the season before that still lives rent free in my head. It was against the Ottawa Senators where Matthew Joseph scored that 5-on-3 shorty against us.
Yep.
That game had me pulling my hair, and we won that game. Like those two
where
games,
he finally scores shorthanded on one. Like he had like a dozen breakaways playing for Tampa. Nothing. First time playing against them.
There you go. There's one of our future episodes, games that live rent-free in our heads.
I like that idea. That's good off-season content.
Now, there you go. Like and subscribe. Maybe we'll do that one later this off-season.
Jeez, I know mine.
Quickly, I want to jump back to one thing on Stamkos quickly with this contract situation because we just had a new article come out here on RBLR Sports as well, talking about Steven Stamkos and the similarities between the 2016 signings and then the free agency this year. So the question I want to pose to you guys in the new article, which you can go check out on RBLR Sports, is are you more confident that the Lightning are going to re-sign Stamkos now than you were in 2016?
It's hard for me to answer because I started watching right at that Stamkos saga. That's when I became a fan of the Lightning, and I was still learning, the rules of the road and the way the league works and everything. Didn't even know what a salary cap was. So I really can't say if I'm more confident or not because I wasn't there for the first time. But I can say right now that I am confident we will re-sign him. Again, I think the McDonough trade, it does complicate a couple of things, but I also think that was maybe one of his demands or maybe a bit of an enticer. Hey, your good buddy's back in town. You might want to stay. I am confident. Again, the way, Brisebois has talked and he uses his lawyer speak, but again, he's just such a legend in Tampa Bay. He's arguably the biggest athlete Tampa Bay has ever seen. Even Tom Brady probably doesn't, hold a candle to Steven Stamkos and his impact in Tampa Bay. And I know, money rules the world, and that probably will end up being the deciding factor, like any, right-minded person will be. But I think we do end up getting him back on the team.
I, for one, am way more confident that we're going to sign him this year than we were in 2016. That was also a while ago, but listen, I think I'm pretty confident he's coming back. Maybe it's just me being delusional, but I'm very confident he's coming back. So I'm more confident this year. Joe, what about you?
I'm really torn on it, honestly. The McDonough trade opened up more questions than answers, in my opinion. I don't know that they have anything to do with Stamkos. I don't think it necessarily has any impact on, like, I think it was just an opportunity for JBB. I don't think there was anything deeper than that. He got rid of him, had the chance to get him back, and did so. And he figures that he can make it work one way or another. I don't think that that's signaling to Stamkos in any way. Maybe I'm not reading into it enough. I think more what we're going to see is something between Hedman and Stamkos in terms of contracts. And that's if Hetty were to somehow get an extension before Stamkos, that would tell us.
The world on fire.
Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But I mean, that would tell us more than I think the McDonough signing. So I'm not 100% sure. I think there's enough room there to make it happen, especially if you move a piece or two. Like a number 71. That's a lot of salary cap that you can alleviate if you pull somebody else in, like, maybe Duclair can take a lesser contract and replace him. Honestly, that might not be a bad trade-off for it. So I wouldn't say that I'm comfortable.
Wait, no, hold on. Did you just say replace Stamkos with Duclair?
No, Sorelli with Duclair.
Oh, Sorelli with Duclair. Okay, I was
I'm still not kind of sold on
it.
Well, I mean, it frees up cap space, and then you've got the room to sign Stamkos. Just kind of spitballing.
And you know what? That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think that they'll do it. I'm a little bit probably more confident than in 16 that they're going to sign him. But there's going to be so many moves made between now and the start of the season that I'm really anxious to see how they make it happen.
So let me ask you guys this, because Stamkos and Hedman have been kind of tied at the hip since, from the start of both of their NHL careers. If you have to keep one, if one of them gets an extension and one of them walks, who do you guys take?
I think
that's easy personally, but also I don't think that they would do that.
In this hypothetical, who's the easy answer? Is it Stamkos?
It's Hedman.
Oh, really?
You stick with Hedman. Yeah.
Okay.
You stick with Hedman.
I'm going Stamkos, but he's the captain of the team, backbone of the team. Like Hedman said, Asteroid. That's the correct one. Like Hedman said, Stamkos. There's no Tampa without Stamkos. That's maybe a little bit of exaggeration, but I do think it's partially true. But I'm also with Joe in the fact that, listen, if Stamkos is walking, you're not bringing back Hedman. Like, there's big changes coming if you're getting rid of top guys like Stamkos. Like, I don't think you bring back one of them.
I think there probably is going to be communication between those two camps in terms of making sure that they're still playing together. It's way more complex than just signing a single player. It's, there's a whole huge dynamic to it that is in play right now that, I mean, I don't necessarily envy the position JBB's in trying to negotiate and navigate all these waters.
So I go back to the McDonough the trade, and I think that's a sign that you're going to bring some of those guys back. I got a couple of comments too that I want to get to as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So let me start with some of the recent ones on Stamkos and Hedman. Daniel here says Hedman can't re-sign until July 1st, which is correct. If Stamkos gets a free agency, which is that day, he's gone. Yes, although didn't Stamkos get into free agency in 2016 as well, and then we re-signed him? Mm-hmm. I think it was it July 1st? I can't remember exactly when it was. It's probably in the article, which I recommend you go check out. I think they did sign him though, like right during free agency. But if they're going to re-sign Stamkos, I do think it's a good point. It more than likely gets done before free agency happens, I would expect.
Yeah, but I don't know if this is me, in my fairy tale world, but I'm also thinking Stamkos and Hedman sign equal deals, or not equal deals, but like similar deals that come out at the same time on the same day.
Retirement deals.
Would be crazy.
That's what I think is going to happen. Maybe not think. I'm thinking with my heart that's going to happen. So.
Yeah, you know what? I think you make a good point, and this comment kind of goes with that. Matt, what Lisa's saying that I think when they go, they're going to go together. So yes, right. Right?
Eureka's comment's funny too. Said, "Oh, Matt's a romantic."
Oh, always Matt.
I did look up some rules just for curiosity's sake. And if I was wondering, like, could you give technically or theoretically speaking, could you give Stamkos a 1-year deal, and then what's the minimum amount of time to give him an extension? So kind of like salary cap circumvention, give him a $4 million deal, and then extend him for 6 or something like that. But if you were to sign a deal now, he can't be extended until January 1st. So that would be a lot of faith that Stamkos would put in JBB to actually write that extension for the other half of his money.
JBB would just say, "We'll see what you're at the end of the season."
Yeah.
Right?
We don't know.
By the way, Daniel, interesting comment here, says previous 2 captains were bought out and traded. I don't think 91 is back next season. I mean, now to me, I think it's a very different situation with Stamkos than it was with Vinny and Marty. Listen, all I'm going to say is if they do not bring
that's
back
Richards.
Stamkos, going to be an angry person. What's that?
Richards was bought out. Vinny was bought out. Marty was traded.
Right, Marty was traded.
Yeah, so Richards was bought out? Vinny was definitely bought out. I can't remember if Richards was bought out.
We're still paying
was bought
Vinny.
out and signed.
Yeah,
I haven't looked at this in a while.
But that's 3. That's actually
Dang.
3.
Oh yeah, you're right. Jeez, man, Jay, do not do it a third time. Please.
Break the trend.
4th. It'd be a 4th. Hey, speaking of 4ths, that's the other topic I wanted to touch on for a second. Guess who's going to their 4th Stanley Cup in the last 5 years?
Big Corey Perry, baby. That's another trend that needs to break.
Well,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we should mention if you've been paying attention to the NHL playoffs right now, the Stanley Cup final matchups are set. It's going to be the Florida Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers, and there's a couple of storylines from all of this stuff. Of course, you've got Florida dominating the Eastern Conference with Panthers/Lightning winning the Eastern Conference in the last 5 years now in a row. You've got Corey Perry back in the finals again for the 4th year out of 5 years, although he's lost almost every single one of those. So trying to break that trend. Oh, man, poor Corey Perry. That's tough. Losing 4 Stanley Cup finals in 5 years with all different teams almost too. I couldn't imagine. So a couple of big trends. Also, the Lightning do have a conditional pick that could be affected by the Stanley Cup. If the Oilers win the Cup this year, the Lightning currently have a 4th-round pick in 2025. That would become a 2026 4th-round pick if Edmonton wins the Cup. Minor details. The Lightning are getting a 4th-round pick. It's just a matter of which year, but it's something to throw out there.
So, who are you guys cheering for in these in the finals?
Edmonton.
That's tough.
Edmonton. It's not tough. It's Edmonton.
See, I just don't want McDavid to win a cup, considering that he went all for salary rather than taking a team friendly deal. Let him wait to win his cup. Florida winning, I think it's kind of neat keeping the cup away from Canada, and also the fact that it's staying in Florida just to piss off everybody else in the entire league that Stanley gets a tan again. I know they're our little brother, and we have less bragging rights on them if they win a cup. But at the same rate, maybe it'll heat up the rivalry even more and make it more interesting in Florida for hockey. I see no real bad things outside of our own kind of pride for the Lightning if the Panthers win it.
Yeah, Joe, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. Like, I really don't care who wins. I can find good in either story. Like, I think it'd be really cool if McDavid got to win his cup in Edmonton. It would kind of suck, if the cup goes back to Canada, but it would be really cool, for McDavid, the current, golden boy, to bring the cup back to Canada. As a fan of the sport, I think that's cool. As a, born and raised Florida man, keep Stanley get a tan, keep that tan going. Just to keep the cup in the South and specifically Florida. Yeah, it gets the traditional markets PO'd, man. So there's a couple ex-Bolts on, both teams. You got Verhaeghe on the Panthers, Perry on the Oilers. But either way, I can find good in either answer. And, even if the Panthers win the cup, yeah, it sucks. You're saying that the gap between trophy cabinets gets a little closer. it's still pretty lopsided on one side, specifically the west side.
I will say though, if Bob keeps playing the way he's playing, he's playing so well. It's gonna be really, really tough for Edmonton. Then again, that initial goal that McDavid scored last night all by himself. It'll be a fun matchup to watch at least.
It definitely will be a very, very entertaining finals. Like, I don't think it's going to be, a steamrolling like last year was. Florida is definitely a better team this year. I think they're going to win, but as for who I want, either or. Just a good series, really.
Eureka has Edmonton in 3.
Florida is the betting favorites to win the cup this year. And listen, when Corey Perry's on the other team, you kind of have to make them Florida betting favorites, right? Listen, I'm not going to go on. Every time someone's brought up this subject to me, I've kind of gone on a rant every time. I'm not going to do that. I cannot bring myself to root for the Florida Panthers whatsoever. I hate that whole idea of like, oh, they're keeping the cup in Tampa. Oh, we lost to the Panthers. So it's you want that team, you want the team that you lost to be the best team. I cannot stand that. I cannot bring myself to root for it's not one of our biggest rivals because we usually beat them all the time, the exception being this year. But it's the
Highlander rule, man. Once they beat you, they consume you. So you want them to do well.
No, it's like the Packers fan rooting for the Bears. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I can't root for a rival like that in Florida. I do not like Florida. I want them to lose. Also, I think it's really funny. Listen, I'm petty. It's just
what?
But it's my fandom trumps everything else here, and that's why I just can't root for the Panthers. Maybe I'm alone in this because it seems like most people that I've talked to at least are kind of rooting for Florida to keep the cup in the state, but I just can't do it. Rooting against a rival like that, especially the Panthers, who are a bunch of
nice non-rant.
Sorry, yeah. Well, you got me going. Okay? I believe it was you, by the way, too, sent that meme in our chat about how it's like, Mom, I want back-to-back. No, we have back-to-back at home, and it's Florida going back-to-back versus the Lightning going back-to-back. So if Florida loses, they lose back-to-back. Lightning won back-to-back. I don't know. That's personally just me. I can't get behind the whole rooting for Florida thing. I think it's silly. I don't root for that.
It's admirable how hard you stick to your guns, Jake. I do commend you for it.
Thank you. Yeah, well, this is what I do. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us in this episode, guys. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and hanging out with us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on social media at RBR Lightning or at RBLR Sports so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one. Thank you to everybody who was commenting with us today, too. Sorry if I missed any of your comments, but definitely hang out with us again next time when we get into another episode. So that's going to do it for us. We'll talk to you guys in the next one. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.